René is a high-level gamer specialising in Rocket League, currently working as a Rocket League coach for European team Denied, and Brazilian outfit Soprano. He also has experience as an esports caster. Currently, René is the chairman of his esports club at his university in the Netherlands. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here again. The times always kind of seem a bit clunky with you guys and when we meet, but I'm happy we can make it work.
Yeah, the times. I just want to take a shout out to Luke. It's 2 a.m. in Canada right now, and he's jumped on doing his thing. So appreciate that, Luke. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. This sport is getting me excited at 2 a.m. So
So René, I wanted to listening to all the things you've got going on at the moment. You're building a career. You seem to have a lot of different opportunities at your doorstep. How are you managing so much at once? You've got so many things happening.
Um, well, managing is a big word because sometimes I do manage, sometimes I don't. But it's all about finding what's important to you and how you want to see yourself in the future. And that can be in multiple ways, and it is ever changing. So you have to look at what are the priorities you want to look at, what you want to work on, and then throw yourself at it.
Yeah, cool. Um, and we're going to dig into a few things today. Um, how is everything going with COVID wise in terms of your university organization? Because I mean, that would be more on site, right?
Yeah. With all COVID thing going out there, we have decided to not do any physical gatherings for now. We decided before the government like said that we can't do it anymore.
Yep.
But we want to be extra safe, and because we are in a room that's not that good, like well ventilated, we thought, you know what, let's not take the risk. And sadly
Yep.
enough, it's hurting the association a lot, but I think that we might be able to survive it.
Yeah, awesome. That's really cool. And you got a couple of teams on the go too. There's, we're just laughing off screen before about the fact that we know your Brazilian outfit from FIFA and the soccer team it's associated with. Tell us a little bit about them.
So Sobrano is a Rocket League team that got picked up, I think, a couple of months ago. It did consist of 3 players. Now 2 of them remain, and they found a new third. Um, One is a very talented 15-year-old. The other one is 17 years old with a little bit more experience. And recently we picked up a guy that hopefully rounds out the team better than only fill a defensive position, that has more experience on the scene. I think they can go far, but it's just we try to give through coaching. I want the teams to have as much agency as they can. With agency, I mean that they can make the choice that they want and can influence the play as much as they can. This sometimes leads to choosing plays that are hard to execute instead of things that are easy to execute. And we need to find a balance between that, because when it was off season a few weeks ago, I was like, I don't care if you guys win or lose. I want you guys to practice these hard things, so eventually we'll be able to like do them better. But then we had the tournament this Saturday and Sunday, and they started out doing all those really hard things. I'm like, guys, we're not practicing today, okay? You can make it easy for yourself, but it's hard to find that balance.
Yeah, well, no, it's awesome. I love hearing that. It sounds so much like, and I know it's a real competition. Esports is real competition, but I love hearing those comparisons to my own experiences in real sport. It's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. Before we kind of get even deeper into some of the organizations you're collaborating with, I want to hear more about you, man. I've talked to you a little bit before when we were researching this whole world of esports, and we talked, and you helped us a lot find some pockets of coaches and different communities that were really positive and helpful. But we didn't really so much dig too deep into your background. I knew you were a good player, and I know you're working with some teams, but where did this all start? When did the kind of playing your player journey begin?
Well, it felt like when I tried to become a player was when I was really young and played League of Legends, but had no idea how to like grow and do stuff. But I had fun, and that was the most important thing. After a while, I quit playing League of Legends because it just became a little bit too stale. Still enjoy watching it though. Um, but after a while, a game like came out, Rocket League. The predecessor of Rocket League was Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Power Battle Cause, and I played that a lot with my cousin. So when that came out, I was like, hey, we have to play this. And we were having a lot of fun together. We motivated each other. And eventually, we were pretty good at the game. After like a few months, we're already like at the top 1%. And we were like, hey, we can maybe like keep growing here. So through journeying with him most of the time, I played at a very decent level. My peak was at the first few seasons. Like the further we gone down, the I would say relatively worse to the player base I became. But it just started out with just playing for fun, and then finding that if you put some time and effort in it and actually want to learn and look how to learn, you can actually get pretty far.
Yeah, awesome. And so you started, when you say relatively young, are we talking 12, 13, even younger?
League of Legends probably at 12 or 13, but when I started playing Rocket League, I was probably already 17.
Okay. So, I mean, if you were to translate that to,
Not even later. I think it's like 18, 19 maybe. Yeah, it's later.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you translate that to regular sport, which I know I put in, quotation marks, that's a late start, but you were still able to get some traction, which is quite interesting. What do you think separated you? Is it the fact that you kind of had an understanding of how to approach esports already from League of Legends, or did you just naturally took to it?
I think I'm quite I like theory crafting. So just thinking about the game, what we should be doing, is something I like to think about. So the reason why we did very well in the first few seasons, at least from my perspective, was because we thought further than, oh, we just have to hit the ball. We thought about, hey, where should we go when we are not on the ball? What should we be doing? And that helped us beating, fighting up to the higher teams. Maybe they had more firepower, but we were a little bit smarter with what we did, which made it easier for us to like keep up with them. Eventually, it wasn't enough because at a certain point, the firepower was just a little bit too overwhelming, but we came pretty far. And I think that difference where we like started thinking about the game a little bit more helped me. But you also see that when you start at an earlier age and playing when you're younger, you see now guys coming up that are like 15 years old and they're just mechanical machines who can do whatever they want with the ball without even knowing that much about where they should be.
Okay, interesting. How do you grow a player like that? I mean, when you get, if say you currently got this Brazilian team, right? And you got a 15-year-old in there who's a machine. Mm-hmm. How do you work with someone like that with so much talent?
Well, because they're very young, they can still pick up on things easily. And because I don't really try to focus too much on mechanical department, because one second. Throat is still a little bit dry. I'm gonna grab some water throughout this though.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I don't focus that much on mechanical department. I let them do it themselves most of the time because it's just a lot of free play that they have to do. I try to teach them that it's important to be aware of your surroundings, know where everybody else is in the field. And most of the time this comes later because the brain develops and like is better at analyzing and getting connections the older you get instead of at like a younger age. So I hope to like emphasize that they should do that. And I want them to experiment because what is good and considered bad in Rocket League is mostly based in their learning experiences, what they play in ranked. And ranked is just literally 5 random people that of similar skill level that are put with you every single game. So the thing that's good or bad always is interchanging. So if you're playing on a team consistently, some things that are considered bad could be really good if you're all on the same line and do the same thing. And that's what I want to teach them, to be able to experiment and to look at other sides of the coin than the one that's like most looked at.
Yeah, interesting. I have a question. We talk about these young guys coming in who are just mechanical machines. They're technically really talented. And then we also know in esports right now, would you agree there's kind of a relatively short lifespan for a player?
Yeah, I think that League of Legends has it figured out better at like the top echelon, that players do hang around like at least 5 years most of the time, which is enough for them to or continue their career in esports or make enough money if you invested like in a good fashion that you can actually be there. But if you're not at that top echelon, it's very hard to stick around in esports and actually make a career out of it, which is something that I don't know if it will get like fixed between quotation mark. I think that at a certain point, League of Legends will be the first that has very well paid national leagues, and hopefully that can slowly but surely seep into other esports as well. But for that to happen, bigger organizations have to emerge within those countries to be able to do that. There are a few that are trying to and are getting maybe to a spot where they can offer a reasonable amount of money to be played for. And we see that most of the organizations that do come up and join it are currently established. Here in the Netherlands, we see that slowly but surely more football organizations are jumping in. And same thing we're seeing in England right now. I think in America, it's the NFL also is trying to look a little bit into it, but it's mostly the NBA that's jumping.
Yeah, it's funny. I from a much lower level scale of organizations. I mean, they're big to us in Queensland and Australia. There's even football teams here, like rugby teams that are looking at esports, which I think is quite interesting. And I mean, the discrepancy between what a rugby player has played and an NBA player is like, $10 million. So, it's a big difference, but yet they're still investing. So do you think the lifespan is actually caused because of opportunity, that there's less opportunity right now for players, or is it a mechanical or a body function thing as well?
I think it has multiple reasons. There's not like one thing we can pinpoint it on. I can say that mechanical ability is very important in Rocket League right now, which makes it hard to stick around. But I think that once you get to the pro scene, the support staff and the support environment is maybe not at such a high quality level that if you're not at the pro scene, you're missing out. Even though the pro scene has good support, if there would be better support staff around organizations, I think they could grow the players to become better than they are in a lot of different facilities. There's an organization that has been recently created in England called Rix.gg. Rix, what I've heard from them is that they even instate a sports psychologist. They even try to get people on board to help them out in a way that they can grow themselves as a person. And if you grow outside of the game, you also will grow in the game. And I think that difference is still one of the maybe bigger issues that makes it harder for pros to stay on top.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that what you just said then is pretty much what our whole, at Valor Esports, where our whole mission and vision is based on is that idea about creating not only transferable skills through esports but a holistic life. So 100 love hearing that. So you're a player, you started transitioning out of the game once you hit a certain level. What was it about coaching that you really liked the idea of?
Well, I've coached before. When I was younger, I think at the age of, what was it, probably like 13, 14, our school had a mandatory program that we had to do voluntary work for 40 hours. This mandatory program helped us to like get around society and understand it more and just be a more open person. I chose to do it at the local football club, where I then would give training together with the actual training, because I was really young, to the youngest members of the club, like the 6 to 8 year olds. After doing that for those 40 hours, they asked if I wanted to stay on. And I was like, well, not. I had fun with it. It's still a good learning experience, so why not? So I did that for 5 years. I even got a small, I don't want to call it a degree because it's literally a course of like 10 weeks where you learn like some basic of like giving training to them, understanding the children, how to deal with situations, and what do you do in your trainings. But the thing that incentivized me to do coaching, and at the last year at my local football club, the current coach of the guys that were 12 to 16 asked if I wanted to do it. And I was very reluctant because I was 18 at the time and some guys were almost 16. So how am I going to be able to like talk to them and like have respect for me when I'm only 2 years older? Eventually it went great. There were some ups and downs, of course, but it was probably one of the most fun experiences I've had in my life. And after I noticed that as a player, I did not enjoy the game competitively that much anymore. To a point, even if I was losing, I was laughing. And of course, that's good that I can be happy when I lose. But you need to be at least a little bit more competitive than laugh when you made a big mistake. So I recognized that I, as a player, was not gonna be as happy as I was in the past.
Okay.
So then I've heard that one of the big teams that was Dutch teams where I was good friends with were having a lot of internal conflict with each other, and they were maybe looking for like a party to help them out. So I was like, well, if I'm not enjoying the game that much anymore, let's ask if these guys are okay with me helping them out and coaching them.
Yeah.
And that's how I landed my first coaching job. And eventually that led to quitting coaching again because casting became better. And then eventually quitting casting again to become coach.
Oh, very interesting. I have one question around the coaching. You're mentioning that you're coaching, there is one 15-year-old in your current team. And I'm very curious more like in general, have you ever faced anyone like either a young player or a parent that don't understand the value of coaching in gaming? Because I think that's like something that is outside of the esport world. From the player that we've talked to, sometimes they don't think about getting coached, even though they want to become professional. And if you, what would you say to those person? Like, what kind of value they can get from coaching?
Well, it's the same. I would probably try to relate it to something that's easy for me to relate to, and hopefully also for those parents. When your kid was young and was doing sports, volleyball, football, maybe even kickboxing, like whatever, what was it that he did? Do you want him to do that with the people of his age without someone guiding them, just in general? Like, there's gonna be internal conflict. There's gonna maybe be issues, and like maybe someone won't get hurt in esports as much as you would get in football, but there could still be mental strain. Would you not like to have at least an adult around that can guide them through that, even though if you don't maybe see the like learning them stuff and giving them insight as valuable, at least have someone around that can help out through conflict? Because imagine if you send your kid of 13 or 14 years old with his age group and just like play football, there's going to be issues. And eventually, if you want to be in a competitive environment, it's always good, and when you're training, to have a guiding person around that. So maybe you shouldn't even try to throw it over the side of, yeah, it's for learning. No, it's just for creating a good environment where he can learn.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I can definitely relate to going to play soccer with no adult and having problems.
Yeah.
On that note, I remember when our coaches didn't turn up to tennis, we'd just try and hit the ball at each other as hard as we possibly could until we got told to do something. So, I mean, yes. So sometimes it's not the most constructive thing to just let, younger people hang out by themselves with tennis rackets and tennis balls. But I wanted to, on the note of parents, what was your parents' support like growing up in this lifestyle?
My parents probably realized, they were always very supportive, but probably realized at a certain time that gaming was not something that was just like a phase for me. Because for some people, it is just like, you have those guys who play like FIFA for 4 or 5 years and then never play it again. I will never play it again, but don't look back at it. I had the phase as well, but it's just that I went to other games. I think they realized like one pivotal point at that I was so invested in it that I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the World Championship of League of Legends on my birthday.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to see that badly. And when they noticed that I went to events to like watch and like meet people, they knew that I was never really alone. Because to parents, it's important you don't become like a shut-in. They want you to be socially accepted, and it's very, very important. But if they hear you continuously talking 5 hours a day on your room with people online, they feel like you're still socializing in a bit, and you're not just like shutting yourself in and only playing games without talking to people. So I think the most important thing why they were still supportive of me is that I did good in school at the time. I was trying to still pursue it, and I was never really alone when I played games. I was always talking to people, and so it felt like them that I wasn't like shutting myself off or something.
Yeah, no, cool.
Cool. I have one quick question around. Actually, I want to jump a little bit around the coaching experience with your club.
Go ahead.
And which is funny because like the coaches that we've talked to at the moment, they were all physically present, like in the with the clubs and with the students. And you mentioned that you're coaching a team in Brazil.
Yeah.
How is that experience for you?
I would not recommend it to myself anymore if I look back at it. And that's because there are so many barriers that can affect you. Um, but I think for them, it's not that big an issue because I don't see like a lot of South American coaches around there or hear anything from them that are like, hey, this could be interesting or whatever. So for them, it's maybe not that like bad, but for me, it feels like it's not optimal by far because first you have the barrier of time. I can bridge it for the most part, but I start coaching at 12 at night, and I don't want that, to be honest, anymore. It was okay like half a year ago, but right now I'm like, I want to go to bed at 11. Um, and the biggest barrier I would say is language. The 15-year-old is great at English for a person that's from Brazil. People in Brazil are not good at English. And these kids are probably like at a level that adults in the Netherlands are like exceed by far.
Hmm.
So the communication is I would say a big issue, even though we can get around it because of the time that we spend together. It feels all more natural. But in the beginning, it was very, very rough. And I think if you could, having a coach from your own ethnicity is very, very important, not only because of the language, if that could be a barrier. Like in Europe, language is never a barrier because English is just so well versed here. But I think culture is something that's understated in esports. In CS:GO, you do see it, but I thought it was always because of ping issues that they could practice better together if they're from the same country. But maybe I was wrong. But you see it slowly also developing here in the Rocket League. That's more and more high-level teams are from the same ethnicity, and I think it's the culture that comes with it that bonds the players a lot better, and they practice more, they enjoy it more instead of just having people all around.
And do you think that's kind of caused partially because you spend so much time together that it's, I mean, not to say that obviously people can become great friends, but because it's, teams in esports, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, do chop and change a lot. So if you're randomly being thrown into a team on a more regular basis, I'm not saying weekly, or maybe say half year or full, 12 months, it's just so much easier to just jump in if you've got so much in common already to start off with.
I would say to like take 2 points an example and how I view it. Um, the longer a coach sticks with the team, the more valuable he gets. And not because he learns more and gets better at coaching, understands the team much more and the players individually, what makes them tick, how they play, and that kind of stuff. So if you come into a new team, it's always very hard to position yourself, see what the team is looking for. Because as a coach, you're not there to shove just like your method down their throat. You're trying to look what they need and what they are looking for and how they want to do it. Of course, you have your own views of the game that you want to like show them, but if they are not that needed as much, then you shouldn't dive too much into them. Just like slowly like show them once or twice and see if they like want to dabble with it or not. But just look at the volatility of esports. Current case right now, I'm coaching like Denied, and they had a very good result last time. One of their players called Chippy is had a very, very good, outstanding performance. And there's a roster that was signed by FC Barcelona 2 months ago, or a month ago even. They performed, they didn't even qualify for the European regional. Regional is like once a month championship for Europe. They didn't even qualify. And it was very bad because top 24 teams make it. And they yesterday, 2 days ago, inquired about Chipping joining their team. Even though they're also signed 2 months ago, 1 month ago, one guy already got kicked by a major organization as Barcelona. Just signs a pickup team, and one guy gets kicked in a month. That's just abnormal to me. How can Barcelona pick up a team like that, knowing that it's not stable in any kind of way? It's so odd to me.
I think they've had a massive overhaul there, right? Because
Yeah.
Actually, funny enough, our first episode of this podcast was with their previous head coach. And
what's his name?
Germain?
Yeah, I think in Spanish style is Germán.
Oh, isn't his name El General or something?
Yes,
General,
yeah.
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 And he was, for anyone listening, apologize for my Australian accent. I can't pronounce anything that's it's nice sounding, pretty much. He was a really, really nice dude. Like he I can't explain enough how his philosophy was incredible. So to hear that he was moved on, and by the sense of the team also has moved on, was sad to hear. But he sounds like he's doing really well. He's got some other opportunities going on right now. But yeah, it sounds like they've had some very interesting transitions in the last few months, which is, yeah, like you can see that philosophy that you just said didn't really align with one he talked about. So you could tell there's obviously been changes there.
Yeah, quick question around that. Like, I'm curious, like, because you were in this community for so long, what impact do you think that could have, like, those changing rosters so quickly on because Rocket League, like, the players sometimes are really young. So what kind of impact? Because like if you play soccer, like you never change team like next week, right? You always play with a group generally for a year at least, one season at least. Do you think that cause impacts on like negative impact on the kid that are playing the game?
I don't think it. Maybe does. It maybe doesn't. It's very hard for me to say. I can maybe like go a little bit behind the thought process why the changes happen so much. The players feel like they have to make it as quick as they can, and at a certain age they can make it. When they're 15, they can make it, because then they're allowed to make it by the organizations. But they don't always look up to the pros as much as I think they should. In like some cases, they just think they can beat them. That's like okay to know that you can beat them, but sometimes it goes a little bit too far. So instead of sticking with the team and growing together, they just think that if they just find the right team, they can beat them and qualify. And I'm like, well, it's possibly true that if you find this certain team, you can might beat them and qualify. But it's just way more important to have a team that is focused on growth together and getting better together, instead of just dabbling around and having a new team every other 3 months. There's like certain cases in Rocket League where there's literally a guy called Growly, who's now notorious for it, who jumps a team almost every qualifier. And that's because he can stick a team, but the team also doesn't want to stick with him most of the time. And I'm like, if that happens, you're never gonna have a certain base, a certain structure in your life where you can actually grow upon, and like don't even think about anything else than growing in the game. Because if you have to figure other stuff out, like in which team are you gonna play and getting adjusted to new players, you're never really gonna grow. You're just gonna like jump from ship to ship and hope you can sail.
Interesting. Yeah, it is very interesting. Like it's very different from sport in a way. Actually, like in CS:GO, I think they are changing roster, but at the top level, sometimes it's a little bit more stable from what I heard from Rocket League. I don't know if it's what I heard because I don't follow it that closely,
Yeah.
but it seems like everyone I talk to in the Rocket League community say that player change a roster like very often.
There's a new rule by Psyonix. In a whole season, which is I think a year, you have 3 transfer windows. After each split, there's a transfer window, and there are 3 splits and 1 World Championships. During the whole season, you're allowed to make 1 transfer. Sadly enough, this also is for your like your backup player. So it's sometimes hard for teams not to have a backup player. But what it does is that teams have to stick, because if you don't stick throughout the whole year and you do 2 changes, you lose all your points towards the World Championship. So your chance of going to World Championship are very, very slim if you do make 2 changes. Maybe if you make it after split 1, it's doable. But if you do it at split 2, hell no that you're going to make it. But that also ensues it only is really for like the high teams, because only 6 teams of Europe go to the World Championship. So if you don't go to the World Championship, making a roster changes or extra roster changes like Barcelona is doing right now doesn't really affect you. So Psyonix tries to incentivize less roster changes, and they've successfully probably done that at like the highest level. But what they also did is incentivize at the lower level to change more often, because there are way more tournaments you can qualify for, and there are way more things you can do. So if one tournament just goes badly, you're not stuck for half a year together before you can have a new one. In 1 month, there's a new one. You can literally start a new team if you want to. And if you're not at that high where you automatically qualify for the regionals or are one of the top 6 teams, it is no issue for you to just keep changing.
That's really interesting because from the other interviews that we had, one thing that often comes back is the lack of governance and governing body in the esport industry in general, which sometimes leads to those kind of things where it seems that you have Psyonix that is trying with the trade, like the window for transfer, but because it is just targeting a small amount of team, then all the other team can do like pretty much what they want. One maybe loaded question that I would have is,
Go ahead.
let's say that you were put on top by some magic, and what is there anything that you would like to do to be able to bring some stability into this world?
There's an idea that I think needs to be, I don't know if it is explored more by Psyonix, but I think should be explored more. And instead of giving the points to the players of the team, that they give the points to the organization. In that way, there should be more incentive for organizations to be in Rocket League and like make the scene more mature. And in that way, decisions are not based on a child that's 15-year-old that doesn't like his teammate. It's actually based upon maybe a sports psychologist who looks at the team in a whole, how it's working, how it's training, how it's doing together. But then again, to contradict why I'm saying not doing it, but looking into it, we're looking right now at League of Legends transfer windows as well. And I literally see whole teams just dissolving and the organization just picking up 5 new players. And I'm like, that's not what's supposed to happen. So maybe it will help out because the organizations have way more say in what actually is going on, and probably a little bit more reserved by making changes. But it could also be that it goes to a point where people don't really care much and they just change whatever they think is good.
Yeah, I have a thought on that. Just everything you're saying is that it's so familiar to contracts with professional sports people. And this is where there's one layer that is, I know it's already happening, but is player agents creating contracts that protect their players from those kind of situations. And I guess there's that weird dynamic where you just spoke about, where if we encourage the organizations to be successful, so they got involved and funded their teams better, and it was all about growing, then they just kick all their whole team out at once. I guess in sport that would also happen. But what's happened is the player agents have come in and protected the individual within the organization. And maybe that's something as well that, I like to call it the esport gods, and that's the magic. If they were listening right now, governance and governing bodies are so important right now, but then also protection for the player so that they meet, the value is aligned in the middle. Organizations succeed, but the player also has to succeed, so they need to work together. Have you dealt with many player agents or seen many player agents before? And can you talk about what they like to deal with at this stage in the evolution?
I am back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think that was mine.
No, that's mine. No, that's mine. I disconnect every 2 hours for like 10 or 20 seconds.
Okay, sorry. Did you hear the question? I can repeat it.
No, I did not.
Okay, so my question was, after saying that players need protection from a player agent, a third party to look after them, and then organizations need to be incentivized to stay loyal to players and be rewarded as an organization, and they can find some sort of alignment there. Have you dealt much with any player agents or know any player agents without, you don't have to be personal in terms of the information, but have you kind of seen this world before? I know it exists, but I haven't dealt with a player agent before or met one.
I know they exist. I've seen them on Twitter a few times coming by. I know that I think there's one particular agency, I don't know it at the top of my head, that has signed a lot of high Rocket League players. A few Dutch ones at least, that's why I know it. But I've never dealt with them or been in contact with them or heard directly from a player about them. But I do know that they exist. I don't know to which extent they work or what they actually do.
Yeah, that's something I might need to explore out of interest. I know, as an avid sport lover, as well as loving esports, you hear, the player agent's so big in sport that you hear about them in the newspaper. I know that's Australian sports particularly, and you see it in, especially in EPL. You hear about player agents working with particular players. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that grows in the esports space as well. I want to just jump into a little bit around your organization at the university. I know that it's a low level thing for you at the moment. It's something you do as a passion project. I just want to, what as a chairman of a uni club and trying to evolve and grow, what's that experience been like for you on top of everything else?
For me, it's been more about the social aspect. Gaming is very much done online on your computer with not really people around you. So even what we want to achieve with the association, creating a more social environment, it's the same for the chairman position in the association. Is you have to be very social with a lot of other organizations around, because how the structure works at the head organization that's above every association is they put you together in a certain sector, and in that sector they communicate a lot between different associations. We're in a sector of indoor sports, which is maybe a little bit odd because, well, where else are we going to put us? Because it is an indoor sport, but it's not that we're like doing kickboxing or judo or whatever. Like those are a few that are around. I mean, like it's not really compared to us, but it's the best section to put us in. So as a chairman, you just have to have a good view of what's happening around you and be social and learn from others, because these associations have existed for like, some of them have existed 20 years, some have 5 years, some even existed 30 years. They have so much experience on the side of associations that just learning from them is the most important job you would have as a chairman. Know how the ecosystem works, know what is priority, know how you deal with members, because even though you're not doing the same thing as them in terms of sports, you're still selling almost a similar package. And then learning from them is probably the first thing you should do. Just like when you try to learn, like start a web shop or something else, you're still gonna look at the big boys around you, like how Amazon and how Bol.com, like do it. A ball is like a Dutch one, and then it's just like a shortcutish, trying to figure out how they do and just copy what works.
Okay, I have one question that, and so one thing what interesting that about what you said is that you're connecting with other clubs that are not esport, in order to learn from them. One thing I'm curious about is if you had the opportunity to connect with other clubs that are doing esport that are at much higher level in order to be able to share those experiences, and what was the experience while collaborating with those other clubs?
It is more that even though like clubs change their board every so often, it's just the experience that the person's has, like, and talking to the end of the year to board members, you can just learn a lot. You talk about what issues they have, like how do they do their member, like how do they get new members, what are their main focus points, how do they do good member administration, how do you get sponsors. All that stuff is so similar for every single association. There's literally almost no difference. Of course, getting members is like the activity that you need to hold. If you're like looking at a kickbox association, they will do like open kickboxing lessons, or they give a demonstration at like a huge event. For us, those activities might be a little bit different, but the idea is still the same. And if you can understand what they do, then you can make it your own and use it in your own advantage.
Got
Yeah,
it.
it's
And
sorry.
and so like something else that I wanted to know is if you had this kind of collaboration with other
Yeah.
club, like of other universities around esports. So for example, we were talking with in the previous podcast with the head coach of the Colorado University. And he was mentioning that for COVID, for example, they had like in the collegiate in the US, they had meetings, and they were able to develop some kind of structure together to be able to keep playing and keep growing during the COVID situation. Is that
Yeah.
something that happened as well, and that you see happening on your side?
We had one issue with that is we currently only did Smash as our game, and we're now trying to during COVID, because we're going online anyway, to go to Rocket League and League of Legends. Smash is a game that why we chose to do it is because it's one of the few esports that is preferred to play physically than to playing online. Of course, if you can play in a LAN environment, yeah. But it's like the only game that has an actual good difference in the competitive integrity when played physically next to each other offline. That's why we went for that game. And when COVID hit, well, if the physical aspect is the most important that we can give our members, people don't really mind, like don't really want to like competitively play it online, like most of the time when they're playing it for fun or want to learn, because there just some things are different in the online scene that is not regarded as fun. So for us, it's very hard to deal with the COVID situation because we're just like trying to expand into other games because that was our plan at the start of the year. We just hope we can do it, but that we cannot really look at the same way as Colorado looks at it.
I just have a question for some other people that might not know. What does a chairman do for an esports club?
The chairman is the general spokesperson, I would say, of the club. He does most of the talking to maybe other organizations or represents the organization at certain events. Apart from that, that's like how you look outwards. How you look inwards is more of a guide to the rest of the board members. You're trying to figure out what should be done in the upcoming time, what has priority. He leads something that a lot of people don't think about is that as an association, you have a lot of meetings together with your board members. We do it every once in 2 weeks, but the bigger you get, the more often you need to meet, like once every 1 week or maybe even more often per week. But we do once in 2 weeks and it's fine for us right now. You have to lead those meetings in a way that it's productive and people actually get out what needs to be get out, but you don't also want to overdo it, where you like sit there for 4 hours and nobody really enjoys it anymore. That's one of your big tasks, and overall you're just everywhere. You're helping out everybody because you need to and want to understand everything. So if there's a problem here, you can help it out. If there's a problem there, you help it out. But the two main tasks is representative of the organization outwards and inwards, guiding the rest of the board into in a good way.
Really cool. I want to jump to another topic, and it's around your casting experience. And this is very personal to me because when I'm gonna give you a small anecdote. When I play FIFA, even now, and now I do it in my head. When I was a kid, I was like shouting because I hated the comments that were put in, and the French comment are really bad. I mean, now it's getting better, but they were really, really bad compared to the English one. And so I kept like screaming and casting my own game while I was playing FIFA, and my dad got really angry. But and it's something that really hit me when I started watching. I came back watching Counter-Strike this year, and I never watched Counter-Strike with a caster before. So the first time it was a bit surprising. So I was like, okay, what is this guy is commenting Counter-Strike? But then I got really into it. After 1 hour, I was like cheering with the caster who was screaming, and so I wanted to know. I think it's a job that not a lot of people know about. They just hear the caster on Twitch, but they don't understand how you get to that. Like, what's the path to go into that job? What was your experience?
I was very lucky getting into the caster world. I was at an event as a player, and we made third, and they were going to broadcast the finals live. But they had a problem. They did not have anyone at the analysis desk to break down the games a bit and tell a little bit about the games. And one of my friends that was at the site as well, he came like running up to me and was like, René, they're looking for a caster and you never shut up, so you can do it. So I was like, well, if you're like that happy about it, and I wanted to try it anyway, it's like sometime. So I asked, he pointed to the guy that they were looking at. So I introduced myself and they were like, okay, there you go. Like, I didn't even have to convince him. They were like totally fine with it. Maybe it was the way that I was talking with him or whatever. but they were like totally fine with that. And after I did that, I noticed that I really liked that. So ESL was doing a Dutch league, and they had an online form that came by on Facebook that I watched like just on how do you say it, accidentally, and I filled it in, and they never really got back to me. They said they've read it and they will like get back to me. But when I saw the casting done at week 1 and saw who did it, I was like, are they kidding me? Did they not get back to me because of these two guys? You're joking. These guys, this is a joke. So I text them, like I sent them another message. I'm like, hey, have you looked at my application? I saw your broadcast last time, and I was like, I think I can do it better. And it's maybe a little bit hard to say, but to be honest, those guys did not have any previous casting experience, so it was not that hard to do it any better. Then they were like, yeah, okay, can you come in next week? I'm like, yes. So yet again, they did not really filter, because the time that I went into it, they were very easily picking up people because there were not many people doing it. And again, I think I did a very good job. Well, not good relative to like how long I've been casting, then let's say it like that, because if I look back at it right now, I'm like, oh my God, you're so bad. And eventually, when I wanted to break through to the better, like more casting stuff, because after I did the ESL thing, I could do everything in the Netherlands. Like nobody would question it anymore because of the experience I had with ESL. Like, oh, if you did ESL, you can do this as well. But when I wanted to break through to the international pod, because I was commentating in Dutch there and I wanted to go to English, that's when I had my first like test, I would say. It's called Rival Esports. It's a very good supportive organization that is independent of Psyonix, that helps them a lot with broadcasting in certain tournaments. Even people that worked for Rival now work for Psyonix. And they asked me to do a show reel where they gave me a game and they were like, cast this, send it to us. It was a solo cast, which was my first time solo casting. And I don't think it was great, but they were like, yeah, this is good. Like maybe they saw potential, whatever. And they took me on. And from there on out, it was just applying and doing, because the only way you're going to get better at something is doing it and learning it. And if you want to get into the caster world, there's a few things you can do. Apply for smaller tournaments that are not paid jobs, because you kind of start anywhere, and practice. And at a certain point, you will get better. People will start noticing you. You can apply for other things because you get better, and they will like check how good you are, and eventually you can slowly grow.
Interesting. It's interesting that you actually accidentally ended up in the casting. So you accidentally the first time, and then accidentally saw the form, and then
Yep.
you
I
ended up
think
being great at it.
I think that even if I didn't find that form from ESL, I might have found it out later and still like asked like, hey, why do you have these two guys on? Or I found something else. So it's more the route that I took and that to the destination. But I think the destination would still be found even if I took another route.
Interesting. So do you feel that you have been able to be good at it because you were at a point where you were really good at the game? So like to be a caster, do you need to be good at the game beforehand, or is there anything that like is there a specific skill that you need before becoming a caster?
You don't have to be good at the game to be a caster. There is no need. You only have to understand it to a very high degree. Rocket League is a very easy game to understand, like what you need to do, how it works, but you still need to know all the terminology and what it entitles. And you need to know a little bit about the game so you don't sound as just something blabbing words. But that's for Rocket League. If you look at League of Legends or even Dota, you have to understand the game at a very high level to be able to cast it, and you have to know every single word of every single item, every single ability, and what it does. So there's a very big difference between being a League caster than I would say a CS:GO, or the Rocket League caster than CS:GO or League or a Dota caster, even StarCraft. So for Rocket League, I think it's easier to be a caster when you don't know the game that well. But I also want to say you don't want to know too much about the game. I've noticed since I've gone more into coaching and then like scourging the world of what is possible within Rocket League and what could be good and what could be bad, I noticed that when I cast, I'm a lot more critical for the players, and I'm way more focused on what's going wrong instead of what's going right. Or like if someone makes a big mistake, I'm gonna be like, oh, no, big mistake. Even like a smaller mistake, I will be like, oh, that's not good. Well, nobody at home would notice it. And instead of then hyping up the player that actually scored, I'm putting down the player that made the mistake. And as a caster, that's not a good thing to do because that's negative. That's not fun. That's not hype.
Yes.
So if you look at Rocket League, the bigger casters out there, they are not even that good. There are a few good casters out there that actually play at a decent level, but most of them a few years ago were literally like around gold, platinum, and even diamond.
Interesting. So from what you said, it seems that there could be a process to becoming a caster where you can learn like the correct thing, like all the vocabulary and all the things beforehand before you go and apply for the first round, right? Because if you go and apply just like that and you don't know anything about the game, then you probably will be like ridiculous and then kicked out probably off the stage.
A good story or person you could look into, how if you guys want to dive more into the subject, is Cyrene. Maybe a little bit hard to get in contact with, but Cyrene has been, I think, coaching for casters for a while. And he has done it with the legendary duo of League of Legends, Medic and Vedius. He has literally grown those two. So if you do want to like dive more into that, Cyrene is a great option to maybe like reach out to.
Definitely we'll take a look at Cyrene, for sure. And yeah, casting was always a topic like I really love. Like I wanted to be I mean I was really bad at soccer, but I really understand the game, and I always wanted to be a caster. But when I think about like how do I do that, I have no idea about it. And it seems like in esport it is very, very similar, where actually I've talked to one or two kids in the Rival Esports experience who said that they enjoyed doing casting as well, but they had no idea where to start. So this is going to be an interesting topic, I think, to jump in and dive deeper.
It's you just need to start small. You can't start big as a caster. It's almost not done because you need to learn. It's something that you probably never done before. You're not narrating your life just in your normal daily basis. So how are you gonna narrate a game? If it's maybe like I've never looked into like casting in soccer or football or whatever word the terminology we'll use. If you want to start somewhere, it's practice, practice, practice. I would say if you want to start practicing, start at your local football club that you're at right now and just start casting the games to yourself when you're sitting on at the tribune and just practice. Because if you want to get signed for bigger events and bigger stuff, you first need to be good. And if you're not good, you're not getting signed. And in esports, it's easier because there are so many small tournaments and you can just access it online everywhere. But for football and soccer, it's so different because, well, it's already a market that's probably saturated. So you have to wriggle yourself slowly in there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. My next question to start rounding out this episode was actually, and I think you answered one definitely right there, but I'm still going to ask it. It's my favorite question, and I think this is a hard one for you because you've done so much, you've experienced so many different avenues of esports already. What would you say are the three most important things for people who want to follow your similar pathway? There's a coaching aspect to what you do. There's a casting and you're supportive of the esports community. You're growing it in a way that you can in your university. If you had to pick three things that are most important for the industry right now and what people could do to get into it, what would they be?
For the industry itself, I would say collaboration. Don't be scared to work together. Don't be scared to share a piece of your pie with someone else, for maybe you'll get it back bigger later. And I think it's very important for corporations to look at that. How can we grow it together instead of just looking inclusively and towards themselves. And if you want to get into esports in what way whatsoever, it's so overdone. Everybody says it. Just do it. If you want to start casting. If you want to become a pro player, start playing. If you want to become a coach, well, start looking to psychology and how the game actually works and what's good and bad. and you can sit around and talk about for hours. You can even listen to this. I would say if you want to get into it, well, of course, listen to this is a good thing, but just do it. Just get out there. Just sitting at home is not going to make it happen for you. And even though it's scary to take that big jump into that big pool of water where you have no clue if you can swim or not, well, if you want to learn to swim, well, you got to go into the water. And if you jump off of a plank or you just slowly like put your feet in it, it doesn't really matter. Just choose something and start going with it.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Mate, you got your 2 teams. What events you got coming up? How can people support you guys?
Well, I don't know who's ever like listening to this, but Sobrano is a South American team that had a very good finish like last time. If you want to support them or look towards them, South American Rocket League scene is something you should look into. It's very interesting. A lot of upcoming teams and stuff. If you want to support the other team where I coach on, is Denied. They don't have a social media account or whatsoever because we are an orgless team right now. So if you are an org and hey, maybe look to dabble in Rocket League, you could also reach out. But apart from that, I don't really look for individual support or whatsoever. I'm just riding the ride that I'm on, and I'm really happy to it. If people jump on, it's fine. If people jump off, it's fine. So if you want to do something for me, just enjoy the ride on the esports train and see where it goes.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. You've seen so much, you've done so much already, and it's really exciting to watch you grow. Looking forward to the next 5 years, 10 years to see where you're at. Thank you so much for joining us.